Are we okay? We got to fucking... We've got to do the fucking shit that we for fucking drug abuse. No! Are you listening?
Sean here, and you guys know my love-hate with the robot relationship calls. I'm going to tell you the reason I don't like them, and I think a lot of you will probably agree, because there isn't any emotion coming from the other end. Now maybe, just maybe, that's why some of you love it. But that's the main reason I have any complaints. However, before you shoot me, they are genius and brilliantly designed, and that's why I listen to them. So before anybody shoots me, I don't necessarily like the fact that there's not a human, but I'm going to tell you why they're genius, because you may not be able to put your finger on it. In his psychological eval, it is noted that he is hyper-vigilant, which at its extreme can be paranoia, delusional, but with Lorne, it's insecurity to the max. He's looking for an ulterior motive in anything, and he has been since he was a child. I have a pretty funny story I'm going to tell at the end of this, but right now we're talking about why the robot calls are genius. When you have somebody talking to somebody else, Lorne feeds off of emotion. He feeds off of he feeds off the emotions of others. Anything he can do to get angry, he will. The robot calls, it takes a little bit for him to get wound up, but when he does, he lets it fly. If that had been Winnie, he'd be enraged in like 10 minutes. The robot calls were carefully planned out, and because they're not a real person, someone like Ember, who's got this rapid-fire brain, and she can just rattle off whatever she wants, knowing exactly how to play this guy. The robot has to pause. And that's uncomfortable for him. He doesn't like pauses. He wants to just keep going, talking over each other, screaming, yelling, accusing. But he can't with the robot. The robot makes him wait. And that in itself is brilliant. But what is truly brilliant is the hypervigilance exposure. Without emotion, without any of the human emotion that goes into conversation, he's left with nothing but words, spat out by a robot. Someone who is hypervigilant will constantly be looking for that ulterior motive, like I said before. For example, today I was joking that I could be gone for 2 weeks and my boss wouldn't even know. And the person I was talking to was like, oh yeah, he'd know. Now, me, I know what she meant. I was joking, like, I haven't talked to him in a while. I could be gone for 2 weeks. But Lorne, he would hear that, and immediately his brain would go, why is he watching me? Why do you say that? Well, I don't like the way you said it. Why'd you say it with that tone? What's going on here? Am I in trouble? That's the way Lorne thinks. That's the way he speaks on the phone, even to the robot. But the robot is spitting out words in a voice like this. Okay, let's do it. And the thing with that is, because they're words spat out by a monotone machine, the only thing Lorne could focus on are the words. Imagine that. Lorne Armstrong not being able to feed off the emotions of others, not being to blame his rage on the other, you've been an asshole to me. Well, he still would. He still did. But he's talking to a robot where there's no emotion. There's no context for how she says anything. So all that's left are the words. And for someone who's hypervigilant, for someone who is looking for that ulterior motive, he's in hell. At one point, I think they weren't even together. Jamie, Amy, and Lorne weren't even together. But she uses the words, made love. Think about this. It's not the fact that a person is having sex with someone else. It's the fact that the term made love was used. Now, Lorne kept going back to made love because he's hypervigilant, because he hyper-focuses on things. And that is his particular stopping point right there. Is made love. You must be in love with him. You must still be in love. Well, you said made love. Why'd you say make love? You're cheating on me. You've been cheating on me since the beginning. This is what I'm talking about when the robot just spits out words. Basically, it's like launching tennis balls at Lorne in a little 4x4 court. You can just hit him all day, and it's fun. But after a while, you kind of watch it, and you're looking at this guy getting bruised up, getting beaten up, and he's going to stay in that little 4x4 court because every once in a while, a tennis ball misses him. And what I'm talking about is he has a moment, like during these Jamie Amy calls, where something happens. Something happens, and he feels, okay, this is working. Forgetting the fact that they argue 23 out of 24 hours a day. So with Lorne and these robot calls, he doesn't have a chance to do that as much because there's the pause, then there's the carefully typed out, thought out message. Then Lorne has to respond, and he has to, this is brilliant, he has to wait again after his response. This means he has to think about what he just said. And because he's hyper-vigilant and he hyper-focuses, he's already trying to predict what the robot is going to say next. But there's a pause, and when you give somebody who thinks off the cuff, like bam, 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 who doesn't think, they're impulsive, compulsive, they're going to start questioning what they're going to say next. It's like making a chess move, only Lorne plays checkers. You're getting ready to make a move, and you're thinking about it. And you're like, oh, if I make that move, a bunch of these other things could happen. Should I go? Oh, but I should go with my first instinct. But sometimes my first instinct is wrong, so maybe I should go with my second thought. And that's the way Lorne is. That's what's happening with Lorne. He's having to think about what he said and what he's going to say. But you can't predict what the robot is going to say because it's not a crackhead like Winnie. And he knows he's miserable. He hates this relationship. He doesn't want to be in it, but he has no choice. I can't imagine ever being proud to tell my friends, yeah, I'm in a relationship with the fucking porn star who had COVID and lost her voice, and now we communicate through a fucking robot. The room would be silent after I said that, and someone would have been like, dude, what are you doing? Somebody's messing with you. Not Lorne, though. It's a real relationship. And because he makes it real, when these well thought out messages, these responses come back, he's taking it seriously. Very seriously. And I think somehow someone talked to him and told him, Lorne, you need to be more mature. You need to get yourself out of this situation. You need to think about what you're saying. You need to be more careful. So Lorne tries to be mature every once in a while. I'm going to get off the phone. It's just too much for me. I don't want to argue, Jamie. Jamie, that's the past. Lorne, that was 5 minutes ago. That's the past. Sorry, that always makes me laugh. And then there's the Wildo. We talked about the Wildo. I thought, was there a way that they could have pushed this off and made Lorne accept the Wildo? We know about him, you're not going to be a porn star. Refuse it. You're not going to be one. Oh, I called my counselor and he said it's okay. So now, after months of screaming and yelling at you and complaining, after an hour, we're good to go. I'm going to allow you to continue to be a porn star. I don't know if they could have presented the Wildo in a way to make Lorne accept it. They could have said something like, Jamie could have said, this is the only one that I like, the only one that actually helps me achieve orgasm, and I'm going to use it. I don't think of it as will. It's just a shape that works for me. Then again, Lorne would say, well, my shape's not good enough for you? Well, I can carve one out of wood and send it down to you. I just got to find a little bitty twig that fell off a tree out here. I know that's a bit off topic, but I'm making a point because no matter what they said, Lorne would be looking for some word, especially if it's an unfavorable situation for him. He would be looking for some word in the description of the Wildo, or why she likes to use the Wildo, or why she's going to keep using it. He would be looking for anything. Oh, the shape. Oh, you like the shape, huh? So Will's shape is the one you prefer. You don't want anybody else's shape. You just want Will's shape. If a woman told me, I'm going to use this dildo because I know you're not here, so I'm going to use this sex toy to pleasure myself, I would be ecstatic. This is a woman who's telling me, instead of going out and having sex with a bunch of people, she's going to use a sex toy until I can get there. Now, number one, I wouldn't have a relationship like that. But if I'm Lorne, if I'm a guy like Lorne that couldn't get a real woman, even if I was a billionaire, maybe he could. A lot of people out there will do anything for money. But I'm saying, if I'm Lorne, I'd be like, oh, okay, you're just using a sex toy? Okay, but no, because it's in the shape of Will's dong. That's his problem. So I don't think there's any way you could sell it to him. But the hypervigilance, Lorne's hypervigilance is what holds him back in every single relationship that he thinks he has. He looks for the ulterior motives. With Winnie, what she's doing at a party, is his secret for cocaine? Are you actually cheating on me? Imagine with his family, and every time they say something, Lorne is thinking, what are they really trying to do here? Well, they said this, and he remembers, as we've discussed, what he wants to remember. And he forgets everything else, so that he can go, I don't remember saying that. Then you play him a recording of it, of something earlier that day. I didn't say that. Now, if you're talking about going out for coffee, that's just Lorne. He doesn't want any woman to do anything with another guy. But he thinks every guy, it's all about sex. That's all they want to do. They go out for coffee, instantly, first date, bang, 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 bang. They're going at it. That's what he thinks. So if a guy says hello, or if he says, oh, hello, ma'am, how nice to see you again, he's going to say, again? When did you see him before? Just like when he was talking to Jamie Amy about a contract that Rod had offered her, some kind of job, and she said, yeah, it was a lot of money. Talking about the contract that she was offered in her past was a lot of money. Lorne, because he is hypervigilant and he's looking for ulterior motives, the first thing he says is, well, did you already screw him? Did you already do it? You didn't say is, you said was. That's something, again, that's really scary about him, is that he looks for those little details, because he is hypervigilant. He's hanging on your every single word. With Debbie, we talked about it after she told him he couldn't sing, did all this other crap, he was a pedophile, and he says, so when did something become wrong with my looks? Because that's all he heard. If Lorne is more concerned about how he looks to women, that is what he's going to be focused on. He's going to analyze every single word that comes out of their mouth. The Ramona, that could work when he was sending her all of those unwanted pictures of his crooked, broken dink. Is this going to be enough for you? And she responded, that could work. He never forgot it. He remembered it. As a matter of fact, he probably used it in his spank bank. He definitely used it as motivation to keep doing what he was doing. And if Lorne wants to do something, he's going to be hypervigilant. He's going to be on alert, looking for those words that will enable him to do it, so that he can go, well, you said, just like, well, you told me I could drink, so I let myself go. If you've never been around someone who is hypervigilant, or you don't know what hypervigilance is, it is not a pleasant thing. It's not something you want to deal with, because every word you say, they will be listening, watching your body language. Well, you shrugged your shoulders when you said that. They won't accept what you say at face value, because they already have their suspicions, they already have their paranoia, their fears, and they're just looking for little things that'll justify their paranoia and justify their accusations, just like Lorne looks for things to justify his behavior. I can't imagine being his counselor or his probation officer and him asking questions and bringing up little bitty sentences that they said a long time ago, completely missing the documentation and the reprimands that he's gotten and the warnings. He just focuses on little crap. Like I told you about, I couldn't say no when he was talking about giving money to people. Because I know, and I bet you any psychologists know, as I've said before, when Lorne said, well, you know, I gave a bunch of money, I couldn't say no. And that's why I did what I did. And they probably just said, Lorne, people are going to take advantage of you. Just say no. You don't have to give money to everybody. You don't have to buy their affection. Boom, that's all they needed to hear. And a hyper-vigilant person, they'll pick out those words. And once they get what they want, they shut down. And those words become their world. They shut down and they just stick with those things that they picked out, and they will pick at you. And they will keep going until your head just wants to explode. I used to be the same way. I had a lot of insecurity. I hadn't really discovered myself. And anything that people said, I was always on edge. Lorne would be the guy, if his boss at work said something and it made him uncomfortable, he would be going up to his boss every day, boss, asking them questions like, am I okay? Are we okay? Am I doing everything right? Hypervigilant people are not very perceptive. They don't look at the bigger picture. They're just analyzing what's in the now, what's being said right now, and then they're going to let it stick with them. Have you ever been told something by somebody, anything, that stuck with you for a couple days? It made you feel uneasy. It made you feel like there was a sword of Damocles hanging over your head, like just impending doom. Well, I bet Lorne feels that way every conversation, because nothing positive is ever said to this guy. Nothing positive at all. His behavior just prevents it. And instead of facing his behavior, as we know, he turns it around and blames everybody else. I don't think I could talk to Lorne in a social capacity for more than 30 seconds. Just looking at him, listening to him, I moved dirt today, and he moved dirt earlier, That's about all he's got to offer. But what we're talking about is hypervigilance. If there's someone in your life who is hypervigilant, and you really want to make it work, you're going to have to speak plainly, and you're going to have to speak in a bland language, like mashed potatoes with no salt or butter. I like mashed potatoes. I would eat those mashed potatoes. It's not how I would prefer them, and it may not be how you would prefer to speak to the person, because you're probably going to be frustrated, definitely going to be a little bit angry at times, because you're like, that's not what I said. Yes, it was. You use the words, and they'll pull out specific words. Kid gloves. You're going to have kid gloves dealing with somebody like this. Any kind of descriptive words that could be taken out of context, you're not going to be able to be harsh on them. They're going to shut down anyway, these type of people. If you give them real criticism or any kind of reprimand, they're going to turn into a blubbering mess, just like Lorne is. So when you're dealing with somebody who's hypervigilant, you need to be hypervigilant about the words you use around them when you are saying anything about them. Be careful what you say about other people. Be careful what you say about things you're doing. As a matter of fact, if I were you, I would keep it very simple around them. And I would never, ever be in a relationship with somebody who's hypervigilant. They'll be watching everything you do, the way you come in, how you set your coat down, what you're dressed, the way you're dressed going out, the tone of your voice. Everything means something to them. There's always an ulterior motive. So my advice is to stay away from it. And if you listen to the robot calls, you're watching genius in action in exposing his hypervigilance. I love you guys. I will see you in the next one.